All right, so Kamaru Usman versus Khamzat Chimaev. I like the match, and I will tell you, as far as it being a number one contenders match, I feel like that's really obvious. I only bring to you that it was interesting that was announced. It was interesting it was announced because Paulo Costa versus Khamzat Chimaev, while we all assumed was the number one contenders match, never was announced. That actually never got stated. And I told you guys a couple of weeks ago, they better have an alternate for that fight because it doesn't feel right. And I even told you that alternate needs to be Kamaru Usman. Now, I had that belief for a couple of reasons. First off, the only one who's willing to take on Chimaev on short notice, not named Kamaru Usman, is Jared Cannonier. Jared would have done it. Jared is a legitimately tough guy that stays ready. I understand those things, but you must juxtapose that with the fact that the main event is very light for North America. There appears to be parts of the world that want to see Charles versus Islam. It's just not in the States. And I bring that to you not to give that fight a hard time, to let you know I've generally got my thumb right on the pulse of this thing. But there is something that I'm missing there. There's something that somewhere else in the world, like they did this with David Hasselhoff. David Hasselhoff got laughed at in the U.S. and he was the biggest star in Germany. Like, there's things like that happen. Klitschko, when he was a boxer, neither one of those Klitschkos could sell out a high school auditorium, but they could in Germany. In Germany, they could do a $15 million gate. So I share with you how important it was for the North American audience, which is your number one driver of pay-per-view revenues, how important that co-main event was. And that is an obstacle that Jared Cannonier, right, that's just a void that Jared doesn't fill. He's got the willingness and tough, and we like him. You don't stop what you're doing to watch Jared fight at this point in his career. It's just the reality. So that's where Kamaru Usman would come in. And I brought this to you weeks ago, that they need to get Kamaru to Fight Island. They need to get him licensed, and they need to get a message to him that he is perhaps going in. Making it a number one contenders bout, I think, is very obvious. To remind you guys, Sean Strickland and Kamaru Usman have already fought. So to set up a potential rematch, up a weight class, like, these things make sense. These aren't tough sells. And I say that to you because we have had a number of number one contenders matches over the years where when the fight is over, we act as though we never said it was going to be a number one contenders match. We move in a completely different direction, and it's not even discussed. Not only is it overlooked or rebooked, it's not even discussed. In this particular situation, I don't think that's the case. I've always thought that Chimaev was one win away. That isn't Chael's opinion. I heard Dana say about Chimaev, if he picks middleweight, meaning pick middleweight is to mean he doesn't bounce back and forth. There's no catch weights. There's no 178. There's no 170 again. He locks in commitment to middleweight. That he will need one win before he draws in for a world title. Now, at the time that statement was made, right, it's like anything. You're only as good as the information that you have at the time. Dana also believed Adesanya would be the champion, but I don't see how that would change things for Chimaev, so I've always thought it was a number one contenders bout. Largely depends on who the opponent is, if that's going to be both ways, right? Treated like a semifinal, meaning whoever wins becomes the number one contender. Kamaru Usman's place, I think that's very real. In fact, Usman wanted the fight with Chimaev so bad, not only did he call everybody that he had their number and text everybody at the UFC trying to get that, he actually went to the UFC and sat in the lobby waiting for people to come out of their office or for time to free up so he could go in and campaign for it. UFC liked the idea. Now, I'm taking you guys back 2 months. UFC liked the idea, more like 4 months. UFC liked the idea. But then it gets revealed the UFC wasn't into signing off on it because Kamaru Usman wanted it at a catch weight. What that told you, the public, falsely, was that Kamaru, who has competed his entire career at 170 pounds, found 185 pounds to be too big. That's what everybody thought when they heard catch weight. That's not what I believe was happening. What I believe is Kamaru wanted a catch weight. He didn't care if it was over 185. It could have been 191. He didn't care about the weight. he wanted to make sure it was not sanctioned at middleweight because it would become a #1 contenders match. And if he beat Chimaev as he planned to do when he called for the fight in the first place, it would draw him into Israel Adesanya. And that was a respect based around cultural heritage to Africa, that they didn't want to tamper with that. And we all understood that. Okay, fair enough. Point being, as soon as Adesanya is no longer the champion, Kamaru doesn't have any problem fighting Chimaev, and you can do it at any weight class that you want. And so that's what got us here. There was a rumor going around that this is now moved to a 5-round fight. I cannot confirm that rumor, and I hope that rumor's not true. It should not be a 5-round fight. No fight that is not a title fight should be a 5-round fight. Right? I mean, we can't start messing with rules. You start messing with rules, and this is what they used to do back in Pride. You fight under the rules of the event. Any fight that's not a title fight and or a main event fights for 3 rounds. So we'll see where that goes, and that's not the hill I want to die on anyway. This is between these boys, but this is a very good fight. And I think if there's anything that I would like to clear up, or if I have any goal in making you this piece, it's to let you know Kamaru Usman is not too small for this weight class, nor does he believe he's too small for this weight class. Sure, he would have liked more than 11 days, but Kamaru Usman used to have world and Olympic aspirations for this country, and he competed at 185 pounds when he was wrestling. So just to let you know, there isn't a size problem here. There's a respect that he and Adesanya shared with each other to stay apart. They're now apart, and we got a #1 contenders match.